Mr. Bison flips!
Mr. Bison flips! Mr. Bison flips! Mr. Bison flips!
This video continues the exploration of Act 3, Scene 1 of Measure for Measure. And so she gets curious about what's he saying. Well, death is a fearful thing, and shamed life is hateful. So there's that sort of parallel structure, parallel expression from the two of them. Aye, but to die and go we know not where. Again, this speech coming up here echoes very much the famous to be or not to be soliloquy in Hamlet, which again we'll explore next year. But the sense of the undiscovered country, or death being this bourne where no traveller returns from, and therefore we know not really what lies there. Claudio goes on then to describe all the sort of horrible things that we experience here at death, or the unpleasantries of life on earth, and concludes that the weariest and most loathed worldly life that age, ache, penury, or imprisonment can lay on nature is a paradise to what we fear of death. So really, I'm fearful that everything is going to be much worse than anything we experience here on earth. So he's now completely turning around, and he is not ready to die after all. And I want to mention here, because I think this is quite an interesting observation. I listened to a lecture on iTunes U by Professor Emma Smith at, I think it's Norwich University in the UK. And she talked about this speech as being kind of the concluding. This is really the last long speech that Claudio does in the play. And there's often this discussion about whether Measure of Measure is a comedy or a tragedy, and we could argue both points to some degree. But Emma Smith argues that this is where Claudio steps in as a tragic figure, in that he is more like a Hamlet than he is like a comedic character from one of Shakespeare's comedies, and that because he now serves out his role as a tragedy character, when the play now continues to become more of a comedy in terms of people getting married and the sort of somewhat happy ending, his role is kind of served out, and therefore he doesn't come back to speak any further in the play. It's an interesting observation, which might or might not be of use for you. But Isabella is now starting to be quite horrified by what she's hearing from her brother. Alas, alas. And he starts to plead, "Sweet sister, let me live. What sin can you do to save a brother's life?" Nature dispenses with a deed so far that it becomes a virtue. Right? You're sacrificing yourself for me, i.e. you're doing a good thing, then God in heaven is not going to punish you. And this really unleashes the wrath of Isabella. And we can see she breaks the meter, she uses exclamations, short phrases, apostrophe O's to show her horror, and she's absolutely appalled by her brother's behavior here, or his turn of thinking. "Oh, you beast," short line. "Oh, faithless coward. Oh, dishonest wretch. Wilt thou be made a man out of my vice? It's not a kind of incest to take life from thine own sister's shame. What should I think? Heaven shielded, my mother played my father fair." So is that, there's no way that you were issued from his blood. So maybe my mother was seeing some other man, and thereby you are actually not the son of my father, because there is no way that you could be this inconstant if you were of our family. And so she ramps up the rage even further. "Take my defiance, die, perish. Might but my bending down reprieve thee from thy fate, it should proceed. I'll pray 1,000 prayers for thy death, no word to save thee." So it's a very different Isabella from the one at the start of the scene. And Claudia seeks to be heard, but she is not listening anymore. She is now ready to storm out of the cell. "Oh, fie, 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 thy sin not accidental, but a trade. Mercy to thee would prove itself abhorred. 'Tis best thou diest quickly." And then she storms off, even though Claudio is seeking to be heard. An idea which is paralleled in the Duke, who also comes to Isabella for a word as she leaves the cell, because he wants to obviously present his plan with Mariana. So Isabella walks outside and waits for him, and the Duke just has one parting speech to Claudio to sort of make a bit of amends, try to mend the damage done towards his deputy, for the moment at least. Angelo had never the purpose to corrupt her, only he hath made an essay for her of a virtue to practice his judgment with the disposition of natures. She, having the truth of honour in her, hath made him that gracious denial which he is most glad to receive. I am confessor to Angelo, and I know this to be true. So, he never actually intended to free in this way. Your sister's done the right thing. She's passed the test that Angelo set up for him. So this kind of makes Claudia realize that, maybe I was not very appropriate here in the way I dealt with my sister. So tomorrow you must die. Go to your knees and make ready. And Claudia realizes, okay, I need to sort this out. Let me ask my sister pardon. I am so out of love with life that I will sue to be rid of it. And the Duke says, yeah, just wait there and I shall get her back to you. The Duke is quite impressed by Isabella at this point and praises her for her grace of soul as well as her visual appearance. But he is curious, how will you do to content the substitute and to save your brother? But Isabella says she's constant and she's saying, I'm not going to resolve him. I had rather my brother die by the law than my son should be unlawfully born. And she then goes on to, which is again a bit of dramatic irony because we know that she's speaking to the Duke, but oh, how much is the good Duke deceived in Angelo. If ever he return and I can speak to him, I will open my lips in vain or discover his government. And the Duke recognizes that that wouldn't be a bad thing at all. But as the matter now stands, he will avoid your accusation. He made a trial of you only. That's it's going to be his excuse, right? I was only testing you, so therefore we need to catch him. And fasten your ear, my advisings, because I've got a plan for how we can work this all out. The Duke then continues to tell the story of Mariana and how she lost her brother, a great soldier, Frederick, and when he sank with his boat, he also lost the chest that had the dowry for her wedding. So very similar to the situation with Claudio and Juliet, in that no dowry for the wedding means no church, means no fulfilled proper wedding. So when she lost her brother, she also lost her husband, because the husband obviously wouldn't marry her without a dowry, or this particular husband wouldn't at least, even though she was in mourning. And the irony here, of course, is that the husband-to-be here was indeed Lord Angelo. And he, at the end of this, left her in tears and dried not one of them. And even now, when he hears of her suit and her loss and sadness, he is of marble to her tears and is washed by them, but relents not. So he's very constant. He's not going to give in to her passion. He doesn't feel the emotion that he should for his previous fiancée. So again, we're emphasizing that role of Angelo as being cold and icy and repelling people. So the Duke then continues to show why he wants to do what he wants to do. It is a rupture that you may easily heal, and the cure of it not only saves your brother, but keeps you from dishonouring in doing it. And Isabella is quite excited about that prospect. How can I'm not only going to save my brother and myself, but I'm also going to help heal the situation between Mariana and Angelo. So please tell me more about this, because that is intriguing. So what the Duke proposes is the following: that we shall advise the wronged maid to stead up your appointment, go in your place, and if the encounter acknowledges itself hereafter, it may compel him to her recompense. So if he seduces Mariana tonight, then he will be obliged to follow through and marry her. Otherwise, he will be condemned for the same crime as he has previously sentenced Claudia for. The scene then concludes by the Duke telling Isabella where to meet, where Mariana hangs out and where they're going to meet, and asks her about how she feels about the prospect. And she says, "The image of it gives me content already, and I trust it will grow to a most prosperous perfection as I think on it more." So they leave in quite a happy state, obviously leaving Claudio to still lament in his pending execution.